The fight against communism, perhaps something much darker, is happening right here, in our own cities, boardrooms, universities, and government offices. The Chinese Communist Party didn't need to storm the beaches. They bought the politicians, bribed the academics, and turned our own media and activist mobs against us. The traitors took the cash, sold out the country, and handed the keys to Beijing. Every institution that once stood for American strength is now riddled with CCP money and foreign agents, while the left cheers it on and calls it progress. The evidence is everywhere. Bank records, wire transfers, leaked emails, personal connections, and public deals. The Biden family, Gavin Newsom, Hollywood, top universities, the radical activist groups, they're all on the take. The CCP's fingerprints are on every riot, every corrupt deal, every anti-American campaign running in the open. The Biden family's China operation, or rather, China's Biden family operation, was a blueprint for how American power gets sold off to a foreign regime. In December of 2013, Hunter Biden flew to Beijing with his father, Vice President Joe Biden, on Air Force Two. Within days, Hunter was named to the board of Bohai Harvest RST Equity Investment Fund Management Company, or BHR Partners, a private equity fund set up with capital from the Bank of China and other Chinese state-owned banks. Jonathan Lee, who met Hunter face-to-face during that trip, was installed as CEO. Chinese corporate filings showed BHR's business license was approved just after the Bidens left China. BHR Partners quickly became a tool for the CCP to buy up strategic assets. The fund was involved in a $600 million acquisition of Henniges Automotive in Michigan, which made vibration dampening technology with military applications. BHR's partner in that deal was Aviation Industry Corporation of China, AVIC, a state-owned defense conglomerate blacklisted by the US government for its military ties. BHR also helped bankroll the $1.7 billion purchase of 80% of the US company Tinke Fungurume Mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo, securing cobalt for China's electric vehicle supply chain. The fund's portfolio included investments in Chinese tech companies like Megvii, which developed facial recognition used for surveillance and repression. Hunter's company Skinny Atlas LLC held 10% stake in BHR Partners as late as 2020. Chinese regulatory records never show Hunter giving up his share, even as he and his father have claimed otherwise in public. In 2017, CEFC China Energy, a massive Chinese conglomerate tied directly to the Communist Party and Chinese intelligence, began wiring money to Biden family associates. On March 1, 2017, State Energy HK Limited, an affiliate of CEFC, sent $3 million to a company run by Rob Walker, a longtime Biden associate. Over the next 3 months, more than $1 million was distributed to accounts linked to Hunter Biden, James Biden, and Haley Biden, as well as other family members. The total haul from Chinese sources to the Biden network exceeded at least $8 million, confirmed by subpoenaed bank records and the House Oversight Committee. Hunter's arrogance was on full display in July of 2017. He sent a WhatsApp message to CEFC executive Raymond Zhao, demanding a call and making it clear who was in the room. He said, "I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled." He threatened consequences if the Chinese didn't pay up, using Joe Biden's name as leverage. Joe Biden's involvement was confirmed by his own associates. Rob Walker, the Biden family's business partner, testified to Congress that Joe Biden met with CEFC chairman Ye Jianming in Washington, D.C., right in the middle of these deals. Hunter's lawyer admitted in court that Hunter received $664,000 from CEFC in 2017 alone, directly contradicting Joe Biden's repeated denials that his family ever took Chinese money. This was on top of over $1 million Hunter made from his BHR ventures and other foreign business deals. The Biden's China operation was systematic. Use the relatives, set up shell companies, move money through layers of associates, and cash in on every connection possible. The Biden's family business in Ukraine tells the same story as China. Foreign money, political connections, and U.S. policy shaped by private interests. Hunter Biden joined the board of Burisma Holdings, a Ukrainian energy company, in 2014 and collected at least $1 million a year while Joe Biden was vice president. While Biden was in office, U.S. taxpayer money and military aid poured into Ukraine. Even after Biden left office as president, the connections and money trail remained, with Ukraine still receiving massive American support, while the Biden network's financial ties to the country never faced real scrutiny. Gavin Newsom's record with China is another case study in how the CCP buys access and leverage in American politics. When he became San Francisco mayor, he didn't waste time setting up China SF in 2008, a so-called public-private partnership that was nothing more than a direct channel for Chinese state-linked companies to pour money into the city's real estate, tech, and biotech sectors. Darlene Chiu Bryant, handpicked to run China SF, was praised by CCP officials and known in business circles as the fixer for Chinese investors. Her job: recruit Chinese companies, cut deals, and make sure Beijing's money got where it wanted to go. Currently, she is executive director of Global SF, and tasked with stimulating economic growth and job creation through bilateral trade and investment between China and San Francisco. China SF's track record is loaded with red flags. Z&L Properties, one of the Chinese developers brought in, was later busted for bribing San Francisco's top public works official, Mohamed Nuru, to get their massive projects approved. The federal case exposed a network of city bureaucrats and developers, all on the take, with Z&L pleading guilty and paying $1 million for conspiracy to commit fraud. Nuru was subsequently sentenced to 84 months, 7 years, in federal prison. As far as I can tell, he is still in there, surprisingly. After he was sentenced, Nuru was stripped of his city pension of $7,600 per month. Newsom's operation also brought in Join Laboratories, Joinn, a biotech company with direct ties to China's military, and Guizhou Moutai, a liquor company with a history of corruption scandals involving CCP officials. While China SF was opening the door for the CCP, Newsom kept his own business interests in play. His Plumpjack wine company was trademarked in China and marketed directly to wealthy Chinese buyers, all while he was still in public office. He never fully divested, and as he climbed the political ladder, his business interest in China kept growing. Newsom's relationship to China didn't stop at City Hall. As lieutenant governor and then governor, he kept pushing for deeper business and political ties with Beijing. California's trade with China exploded to $166 billion a year, with Chinese cash flooding into real estate, green energy, and Silicon Valley startups. Newsom ignored the CCP's role in fentanyl flooding the state and said nothing about China's human rights abuses or the crackdown in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. In 2023, Newsom flew to China, met with Xi Jinping, and got the full propaganda treatment from Chinese state media, which praised him for his stability and cooperation. Newsom signed new climate agreements with the city of Shanghai and launched the Bay to Bay Initiative, which connected San Francisco directly to China's Greater Bay Area. Watchdog groups flagged this project as a pipeline for CCP influence over California's economy and politics, warning it gave Beijing a foothold in state affairs. When pressed about the risks, Newsom's office refused to comment, and business leaders claimed it was all about economic opportunity. China SF even partnered with Huawei, a company blacklisted by the US for espionage and tech theft, letting them sponsor events and set up shop in San Francisco. The amount of money Huawei funneled to China SF is still unknown, but the company's US expansion came right after these deals. Newsom's model is to open the doors, hand out incentives, and let Beijing's money and influence take root. California has become the perfect place for CCP infiltration in America, and Newsom was at the center of it, building the pipeline, protecting his own interests, and letting Chinese state-linked businesses operate with almost no oversight. The result is an American state economy tied to Communist China's agendas. Neville Roy Singham, born in Chicago and now operating out of Shanghai, is the architect behind a sprawling web of dark money, fueling America's most radical, anti-American, and pro-CCP activism. Singham made his fortune selling ThoughtWorks, his tech firm, for $785 million in 2017. Instead of retiring quietly, he moved to China and began pumping his wealth into a network of nonprofits and shell foundations designed to mask the origins and destinations of his cash. The evidence is overwhelming and documented in congressional letters, IRS filings, and investigative reports. Singham's United Community Fund and Justice Education Fund are classic pass-throughs, $40 million in revenue in a single year, with the vast majority sent out in grants to other activist groups. These organizations have no real public footprint, no transparency, and are structured to hide where the money comes from and where it goes. Singham's money bankrolls the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, which played a major role in organizing the Los Angeles riots and anti-ICE protests. PSL signs and banners match the Answer Coalition, another Singham-funded group, down to the font and color. The People's Forum, a Manhattan nonprofit, is another Singham vehicle. Its Midtown offices hosted organizing sessions for the Columbia University encampment and other anti-Israel protests. Congressional investigators have traced direct funding from Singham's network to these groups, and the New York Times tracked hundreds of millions flowing from Singham's entities to organizations mixing progressive advocacy with Chinese government talking points. His wife, Jody Evans, runs Code Pink, a group that has received at least a quarter of its funding from Singham-tied sources since their marriage in 2017. Code Pink's leadership parrots CCP propaganda, defends China's mass detention of Uyghurs, and lobbies Congress to ignore Beijing's crimes. Evans and Code Pink have met with the House Select Committee on China to push Chinese interests, including denying evidence of forced labor in Xinjiang. The Justice Education Fund, another shell, lists him as a curriculum developer, with a $72,800 salary while pushing pro-CCP content into American universities, especially Columbia, through the Cairo Center and other affiliates. The People's Forum and Code Pink have jointly hosted events with the Chow Collective, a Chinese media group openly promoting Beijing's agenda. Breakthrough Media, BT News or BTN, funded by Singham, is a propaganda platform pushing Chinese state narratives to American audiences. BTN leadership are almost all leaders in the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL. In 2023, BTN's anchors were PSL co-founders Brian Becker, Eugene Purier, and Rania Khalek. The money trail leads back to Shanghai. Nonprofit filings show $1.8 million flowing from Singham's U.S. shells to Magu Group, a Chinese media company with offices decorated with banners reading, "Always follow the party," and portraits of Xi Jinping. Singham's consulting business in China partners with CCP propaganda officials, and he's attended Communist Party workshops on exporting Beijing's ideology. Congressional committees, led by figures like Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Senator Marco Rubio, and Senator Lindsey Graham, have demanded full investigations and FARA registration for Singham and his network. They cite Singham's role in funding groups tied to violent protests, anti-Semitic riots, and organizations with direct links to U.S.-designated foreign terrorist groups like the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine. The Chinese Communist Party's infiltration of American higher education is a multi-layered operation that's been running for years. American universities have been targeted for their research, technology, and access to future leaders, and Beijing's agents have used every tool available to get inside. Confucius Institutes were set up as language and culture centers on over 100 campuses, but their real purpose was to push CCP propaganda, restrict debate, and steer research in directions that serve Beijing's interests. Even after public and legislative pressure forced the closure of most Confucius Institutes, at least 64 universities quietly reopened similar programs under new names, keeping the Chinese government's influence pipeline intact. These programs operate under non-disclosure agreements, with curriculum and staff often dictated by the United Front Work Department, the CCP's global influence arm. The money flowing from China into American universities is staggering and intentionally opaque. Reports show at least $1.3 billion in Chinese donations and contracts went undisclosed, violating federal law and university reporting requirements. Major schools like UC Berkeley, Georgia Tech, and Yale have taken millions through offshore accounts and shell foundations, making it nearly impossible to trace the true source. Beijing's talent recruitment programs, especially the Thousand Talents Plan, are at the heart of the espionage campaign. These programs offer big salaries, research funding, and perks to American professors, researchers, and graduate students in exchange for transferring technology, research data, and intellectual property to China. Participants sign contracts requiring them to share breakthroughs with Chinese institutions, set up shadow labs in China, and recruit colleagues into the pipeline. The FBI and Senate investigators have documented hundreds of cases where professors concealed their ties to these programs, lied on grant applications, and funneled taxpayer-funded research to CCP-controlled labs. Arrests and indictments have followed, but the scale of the operation is massive and ongoing. Chinese Students and Scholars Associations, CSSA, operate openly on nearly every major U.S. campus, backed and directed by Chinese consulates and embassies. These groups monitor and report on Chinese and Chinese American students, suppress dissent, and mobilize protests to shut down criticism of the CCP and their allies. CSSA chapters have been caught surveilling students, intimidating critics, and even funding travel for American politicians to China. The U.S. State Department and multiple Senate reports confirm that CSSAs are tools of the United Front, used to control the Chinese diaspora and influence campus politics. The Chinese Scholarship Council, CSC, and similar state-run programs fund thousands of Chinese students in the U.S., often attaching conditions that require recipients to report back to Chinese authorities, sign loyalty pledges, and participate in intelligence gathering. These arrangements are rarely disclosed in U.S. universities, and many recipients are pressured to share research or even steal data for Beijing's use. Stanford, Harvard, MIT, and dozens of other top universities have been implicated in cases where Chinese nationals or American professors with CCP ties funneled sensitive research, proprietary algorithms, and advanced technology back to China. DOJ and FBI investigations have exposed professors setting up parallel labs in China, hiding foreign income, and passing on defense-related research to CCP-controlled entities. The CCP's academic espionage operation is a full-spectrum campaign. Propaganda centers disguised as cultural institutes, shell companies and offshore accounts hiding billions in donations, talent plans bribing scientists, and student groups acting as eyes and ears for Beijing. American universities, blinded by money and prestige, have become the soft underbelly of U.S. national security, with the CCP exploiting every loophole and weakness they can find. In June of 2025, federal agents in Ann Arbor, Michigan arrested Yoon Ching-jian, a 33-year-old Chinese national and University of Michigan researcher. Her boyfriend, Zunyang Liu, arrived from China at Detroit Metro Airport, where customs officers found heat-sealed plastic bags hidden in tissue boxes. The bags contained Fusarium graminearum, a fungus classified by the DOJ as a Tier 1 agro-terrorism weapon, responsible for head blight in wheat, barley, corn, and rice, and known for poisoning livestock and humans across Asia and Eastern Europe. Liu admitted he smuggled the samples on purpose, following orders from the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Jian's research was funded by the Chinese government under Project 863, their state-run bioweapons program. Investigators seized Jian's devices, uncovering emails with PLA-linked virologist Dr. Chen Wei, and CCP loyalty pledges, and payment records from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. She had been sending reports on U.S. crop vulnerabilities straight to her handlers in China. A few days later, agents arrested Chung Xun Han, a 29-year-old PhD candidate from Huazhong University of Science and Technology in Wuhan. Han landed in Detroit, where customs intercepted 4 packages addressed to the University of Michigan staff. Inside were Ascaris roundworm larvae, hidden in hollowed-out textbooks. Han deleted messages before landing, but forensics teams recovered communications with Jianfeng Liu, dean at HUST, and a PLA Central Hospital collaborator. Han's instructions were to deliver the samples, avoid detection, and report back to Wuhan. He also coordinated with Dr. Zhang Yongxin at the Shanghai Public Health Center on pathogen resistance projects. The FBI and DOJ found that Jian, Liu, and Han were all tied to the same university lab, moving biological agents flagged as dual-use or potential weapons. The operation used academic visas and research partnerships as cover, exploiting university resources and weak oversight. Jian and Liu were charged with conspiracy, smuggling, and visa fraud. Han faced charges for smuggling and making false statements. U.S. Attorney Jerome Gorgon called it a deliberate effort to undermine American agriculture and food security. FBI Detroit Chief Gibson said the CCP was using academic access to run biological smuggling operations. Customs and Border Protection confirmed the investigation tracked packages and digital communications from Wuhan to Ann Arbor. Jia's research was funded by CCP grants. Han's University was a known PLA pipeline, and the biological samples were chosen for their history of agricultural devastation. 3 arrests in only 2 weeks, all tied to the University of Michigan, exposing a coordinated campaign by China. Some of Hollywood's biggest studios, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, Sony, and Netflix, serve the Chinese Communist Party's agenda in many ways. Today, the China Film Administration and Central Propaganda Department decide which movies get into the Chinese theaters and which get banned. If a studio wants a piece of China's box office, it bends the knee to Beijing. Disney filmed Mulan in Xinjiang, just miles from Uyghur concentration camps. They thanked the Turpan Public Security Bureau in the credits, the same agency sanctioned by the U.S., for running those camps. Chinese censors reviewed the script, and Disney executives met with CCP officials to guarantee a Chinese release. Tencent has poured billions into projects at Legendary Entertainment, Universal, and more, buying veto power over scripts, casting, and marketing. Chinese conglomerates like Wanda Group and Alibaba both own major stakes in AMC Theaters, Legendary Entertainment, and other Hollywood studios. Wanda's boss, Wang Jianlin, is a CCP member who openly brags about using his investments to guide American film content. Scripts get rewritten for China, removing anything that could offend Beijing. At the same time, here at home, American patriotism, Christianity, and traditional values get mocked or erased, replaced by the radical left's agenda. Activist groups like GLAAD, GLAAD, and the Human Rights Campaign pressure studios to fill movies and shows with LGBT and trans characters, no matter the story or audience. Disney, Netflix, and Warner Brothers pledged to meet quotas for representation, and Disney executives have admitted on camera to pushing the not-so-secret gay agenda into children's programming. The Writers Guild, SAG-AFTRA, and other Hollywood unions are packed with open socialists and DSA members, who use their positions to push anti-family, anti-Christian, and anti-American themes in every script they can. During the 2023 started Israel-Hamas war, Hollywood actors and writers signed open letters blaming Israel for terrorism, while scripts and documentaries painted Western civilization as the villain and glorified left-wing radicals, criminals, and terrorists. Inside China, the Communist Party reviews every script, every actor, and every line. Anything unharmonious gets cut. Chinese audience see a sanitized pro-CCP version of every film, while Americans get a steady diet of leftist and anti-Western propaganda. Linda Sun spent nearly 15 years moving up through New York state government, holding positions like Deputy Chief of Staff and Deputy Diversity Officer. With access to top officials and sensitive information, she secretly worked as an agent for the Chinese Communist Party, advancing Beijing's agenda from inside. Sun blocked Taiwanese diplomats from meeting the governor, passed internal documents to Chinese officials, and arranged for Beijing's representatives to join confidential state COVID-19 calls. She edited official statements to erase references to China's human rights abuses, especially the Uyghur camps, and made sure New York's government always followed the CCP's line. She also secured state proclamations for PRC officials, bypassed protocols for the CCP's benefit, and organized backdoor meetings between Chinese officials and state leaders. In return, Sun and her husband Chris Hu collected millions in kickbacks from Beijing. They lived in a $3.6 million mansion in Manhasset, owned a $1.9 million Hawaii vacation home, and both drove luxury cars. They enjoyed first-class travel, exclusive events, and specialty foods delivered by Chinese government contacts, who ran a liquor store in Flushing and several other businesses, all boosted by Chinese support. The FBI raided their Long Island home, seizing evidence of the money trail and communications with Chinese handlers. The indictment charged Sun and Hu with acting as unregistered foreign agents, money laundering, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit visa fraud. The FBI and DOJ has warned that the CCP is targeting nearly every state government in America, using insiders like Sun to push Beijing's interest from within. The Chinese Communist Party has a pipeline straight into America's activist networks, universities, and political circles. The Chinese Progressive Association, CPA, headquartered in San Francisco and Boston, has hosted People's Republic of China flag-raising ceremonies at Boston City Hall, coordinated with the Chinese Consulate General in New York, and promoted CCP talking points on Hong Kong and Taiwan through their official statements and sponsored events. In 2019, CPA's Boston branch worked with the Chinese consulate to organize a National Day Gala, celebrating the 70th anniversary of the PRC. CPA's board members have attended United Front Work Department events and have been photographed with top CCP officials. CPA is the fiscal sponsor for Black Futures Lab, run by Alicia Garza, co-founder of Black Lives Matter. Garza's project is bankrolled through CPA's nonprofit status, which shields its funding sources from public scrutiny. In 2018, CPA reported $4.7 million in revenue, with major donors including the Tides Foundation and organizations linked to Chinese government-backed foundations. Black Futures Lab pushes anti-capitalist, anti-police, and pro-Marxist messaging, echoing CCP lines on systematic oppression and imperialist America. As we covered, Neville Roy Singham's money bankrolls the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, which led the violent 2020 Los Angeles riots, and Answer Coalition, which organizes anti-Israel and anti-police protests regularly. The People's Forum in New York, another Singham front, hosted the 2024 International People's Assembly, with speakers from Chinese Embassy and pro-CCP media. Jody Evans, head of Code Pink and Singham's wife, has met with Chinese diplomats, defended the CCP's treatment of Uyghurs, and lobbied Congress to oppose sanctions on China. On campus, Chinese students and scholars associations operate under the direct supervision of Chinese consulates. At the University of California, Berkeley, the CSSA received directives from the Chinese consulate in San Francisco to protest the Dalai Lama's visit in 2017. At Columbia University, the CSSA organized rallies to drown out Hong Kong democracy activists, with funding and instructions traced back to the Chinese embassy. Universities like Yale, Stanford, and MIT have accepted tens of millions in undisclosed Chinese donations. MIT's Media Lab received $25 million from Chinese tech giant Tencent, a company with direct ties to the CCP's Ministry of State Security. In 2021, the Department of Education flagged Yale for failing to report $30 million in Chinese gifts. Politicians like Representative Judy Chu and Representative Grace Meng have attended events sponsored by the United Front-linked groups, including the All-China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese. Both have received campaign donations from individuals tied to Chinese community organizations, flagged by the FBI for their influence operations. This is, in part, how the CCP turns American leftists into their attack dogs. The United Front Work Department is the Chinese Communist Party's global influence machine, running political warfare, espionage, and elite capture with a $2.6 billion budget and direct orders from Xi Jinping. United Front operatives ran illegal Chinese police stations in New York City, including one above a ramen shop in Manhattan's Chinatown, registered under the American Chang Lei Association. These so-called service centers claim to help immigrants, but actually served Beijing's Ministry of Public Security, tracking dissidents, intimidating Chinese Americans, and pressuring local officials. Lu Jianwang, or Harry Lu, and Chen Jinping, both naturalized U.S. citizens, operated the Manhattan station under orders from the Fuzhou Police Security Bureau. The FBI's complaint included photos of them in front of a Fuzhou Police Overseas Service Station banner, proving official Chinese government involvement. Their real mission was surveillance and repression. Lu and Chen tracked dissidents, collected personal information, and reported back to China. They pressured critics to return to China and threatened families of targets. One case involved harassing a fugitive's family with threats to cut utilities and vandalize their home. The station reported petty crimes and telecom fraud, but its main job was silencing CCP opponents. When the FBI raided the office in October of 2022, Liu and Chen tried to destroy evidence and delete communications with their Chinese handlers. Both were charged as unregistered foreign agents and with obstruction of justice. Chen pleaded guilty in 2024, admitting he ran the station for Beijing and destroyed evidence. By 2023, at least 7 illegal Chinese police stations operated in the U.S., 2 in New York City, 2 in California, and others in Minnesota, Nebraska, and Texas, all tied to United Front-linked associations using community service as cover for espionage and intimidation. The FBI called it a direct assault on American sovereignty. The United Front's money and influence also flow through the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries, the CPA-FFC, which has set up sister city deals with over 200 U.S. cities, including Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, and Miami. These deals buy off local officials with junkets, business opportunities, and access to Chinese markets. In 2024, the State Department flagged CPA-FFC's interference in Texas and Florida, including attempts to shape state laws on trade and education. In 2024, the DOJ charged Dr. Simon Chin at MIT for hiding $2.2 million in Chinese funding tied to a CCP talent program. At Stanford, CSSA members worked with the Chinese consulate in San Francisco to organize protests and monitor students who criticized Beijing. Cultural centers and friendship societies in cities like San Francisco, Houston, and Boston serve as United Front bases. The Houston Chinese Civic Center, flagged by the FBI in 2024, hosted CCP officials and funneled money to local politicians and business leaders. In California, the Bay Area Council's China Initiative was exposed for taking direct funding from United Front affiliates and pushing pro-CCP policies in Sacramento. The United Front also targets non-Chinese Americans, recruiting business executives with market access, funding think tanks like the Carter Center and Asia Society, and using academic exchanges to push CCP narratives and suppress criticism. Politicians from the White House to city halls have been taking Beijing's money and have been doing their bidding. Universities, once the pride of American innovation, are research arms for the CCP, trading access and technology for fat checks and empty promises. Hollywood, once a symbol of American culture, now churns out propaganda and filth on command, bowing to censors in Beijing and activist mobs at home. The American left has become a tool for foreign power, parroting Chinese talking points, attacking Israel, defending communist tyranny, and undermining everything that makes this country strong. The time for looking the other way is over. Chinese money and influence must be cut off at the source. American institutions must be cleaned out, rebuilt, and defended.